Cover 3 Tailgate. And welcome back to the Cover 3 podcast here on CBS Sports. That's Tom Fornelli. That's Bud Elliott. That's Danny Kanell. I'm Chip Patterson coming to you live whenever you get it. Appreciate all of y'all for rocking with us here during a New Year's week as we are trying to get you as much of this awesome college football playoff content as possible. So we are sitting here with a little edition of Big Game Breakdown. So let's not waste any more time. No more headlines to get to. Let's jump in to Big Game Breakdown. Before we get into Big Game Breakdown, a quick shout out to Amazon Prime. Last minute holiday gifts? No problem. Prime's fast, free shipping keeps you covered. Holiday wins delivered. It's on Prime. All right. Now, of course, the Cover 3 Tailgate has already gotten a chance to be able to consume the locks and move those lines. They're, sharpened up just by us even having a show. So now how about like the way the game is even going to play out? And we will begin. Should we go chronological order or do you want to reverse it?
I think we should go chronological because that's the way I have my notes written.
Okay, Tom. Well, let's start then on Wednesday night, December 31st, the Cotton Bowl quarterfinal between Miami and Ohio State. Is it oversimplifying to say that this game is decided at the lines of scrimmage?
No, that is where every game is decided, Chip Patterson.
Okay. Well, you can play to the perimeter if, you need to.
If you're a coward.
Obviously, and this is going to come. I mean, it doesn't get more man ball than Cristobal going up against Ryan Day in this kind of setting, in this kind of scenario. So what is the key for Ohio State to make sure that they are able to give Julian Sayin a little bit more time and allow Julian Sayin to get a little bit more comfortable than he was the last time we saw the Buckeyes, which of course was a 13-10 loss to Indiana, where the sack count doesn't even necessarily account for the way the game played out in terms of disrupting the flow of the downfield passing attack for the Ohio State offense.
I mean, if you want to try to slow down Miami's pass rush, I don't think the formula is anything that complicated than what you would typically do. Is you got to try to run the ball. Like if you look at Ohio State's run game as a whole this year, it hasn't been explosive at all, which kind of limits its overall impact, but it has been mostly effective as far as like a down-to-down basis. They've been pretty good at getting like those 3, 4, 5-yard runs to just keep things on schedule, trying to draw the safeties up closer to the line of scrimmage, and then bam, they hit them over the top with the passing game. But we saw, when they struggled against Texas, they only ran for 2.3 yards per carry. When they struggled against Indiana, they only ran for 2.2 yards per carry, which was made sure they weren't able to slow down those pass rushes, which put Julian Sayin under a lot of pressure, which led to the 2 worst performances we have seen from Ohio State offensively all season long. So can they do it against Miami? I don't know. I think that if you look at Miami, clearly incredible pass rush, incredible defensive line. I don't think that overall their run defense, to me, is as good as Texas or Indiana's. I think that there's more of a chance you can get them there. But you have to prove that you can do it. Because if you don't, and they're just allowed to kind of pin their ears back a little bit, I do think that in the secondary, they have enough size. Like if you look at their corners and their safeties, they're all like 6'1", 6'2". Like that, it is a big secondary. So I think that kind of helps them dealing with Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate. The one thing I do wonder about, though, like, can this be a Max Clare game for Ohio State? Because if you look at where Miami gets, like their linebackers aren't great in coverage. So if Ryan Day is able to figure out ways to get Max Clare on their linebackers, I do think that could be a matchup that Ohio State's able to exploit regularly and to great effect. So that is something I'm looking for. But I do think that it's all going to come down to, can we run the ball? If they can't, it could look a lot like the Indiana and Texas games.
I agree with that a lot. I do think that this is the best test Miami has had as far as receivers so far this year in a different way, right? A&M's receivers are good, like really good, in fact, but they are not like they don't have the same size that Ohio State has. And so I'm curious. Like Miami's got some length too, so it's not to say that they can't handle that. It's just a bit of an unknown, test for them right now. Ohio State's offensive line was like a little bit not amazing down the stretch, whereas I thought like first half of the year they were really, bullying people. I do think that the speed with which Sayan gets the ball out is pretty important here, and he doesn't hold the ball very long. Like he is 1-2 go, like gets it out really fast. How much can that neutralize Miami's pass rush? Like that's another thing I'm looking for here. And then Ohio State, I know they lost those guys off last year's team, but like they're pretty damn good on the defensive front still, especially in the middle. Nobody's really run the ball on them like much at all this year. And so like Miami, they were able to do it against Texas A&M, especially down the stretch, and that helped them win the game, put it away and whatnot. Can they do the same against Ohio State? If not, like Beck does not throw the ball down the field much at all. Can Ohio State just play a million guys in the box, flood those kind of short intermediate zones? Can they tackle some of those Miami screens? I that's kind of what's on my notepad here as far as like, does Ohio State win, and if so, by how much?
I think one of the elements too is, you guys made great points. Total agree on the lines of scrimmage. Can Ohio State protect Julian Sayin? They failed to do so against Indiana, but I think part of that as well was the disguising that Indiana did for the defense, because Julian Sayin did not look comfortable. Bud was saying, get your hands out, get the ball out of your hands quickly. He didn't know where to go with it quickly against Indiana. And that one thing is Corey Heatherman's going to have to try to disguise, confuse him a little bit, because as somebody who's, completed a really high percent of his passes, 77%, he clearly knows where to go with the football. And if he does, he can pick you apart, get it out quick. And that can be, nothing frustrates edge rushers, sackers, guys that are getting after the quarterback. Then you think you've got him and the ball's gone. So it's got to be a combination of, can Ohio State protect, but also can Miami confuse Julian Sayin, rattle him a little bit? Because I'm very curious to see how Sayin bounces back. This is a real first piece of adversity that he's faced, in his career, with a rough game. Not that he cost him the game by any means, but where he did not put up the numbers he was used to. He just looked a little bit confused, like a first-year starter. Miami's going to have to do the same if they want to pull off this upset.
I wish that, for the purposes of trying to figure out what to expect from Carson Beck in this game, I wish that the Texas A&M win wasn't so obviously impacted by the wind.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, you just have to. I can't be like, ooh, he didn't throw an interception. Well, yeah, he didn't push the ball down the field, because if you try to throw it this way, more than 10 yards, it's going to end up way over here. So, like, yes, it was his worst passer rating since the Louisville game. Yes, 103 passing yards and 5 some odd yards per attempt ain't going to do anything. Oh, he didn't throw an interception. Is that good? It's like, well, but he didn't really put the ball in danger either. He didn't even take the chance on it. And his one touchdown was a fly sweep. It was the old little pop pass right there. So I mean, Danny, how do you grade or even set expectations for what Carson Beck can be in this game? Because Bud just said it, and I think about this because Bud just said, done really push the ball down the field. And I think I agree with that, right? But do you think he's got it in him? You think he's got the juice to be able to step up and make some big time throws? Because we will be in the opposite. We'll be in a controlled environment. He should be, if there's any place where he can step up and show some of the physical tools that at one point had him declaring for the NFL draft, he should be able to show it in the Cotton Bowl.
I think they had some shot plays called in the first half that they missed. And then they were like, we can't throw those. Like, it's just way too low a percentage in the win. So they did. I think they'll take some shots, and I might be biased anytime you see something in person, but I mean, seeing him Tallahassee, he had some beautiful deep balls. But that was, that Florida State was good. It was a hostile environment at the time. We thought it was going to be a better one, but I still think he's got it in him to make those throws. The problem is the timing of when they come. Do you get it right? Like, do you get that matchup? I clearly think he can hit them. Do you protect him in those situations? And then if you dial up one of those big throws and they're covered, they don't bite on a play action, or they're just not there. Does he have the kind of the the acuity to just say, all right, I'm going to check it down. I'm going to get out of this. I'm not going to make a big mistake. I mean, that clearly is something that still would follow Carson Beck because the history he's had even this season. But the bottom, last month of the season, he's protected the ball really well. And before the game against Texas A&M, they were still pushing the ball downfield somewhat. So I think they'll take some shots. I don't think they're going to be asking him to sit back there and pick apart Ohio State's defense by any means.
I think you have to take those shots, honestly.
Yeah. Just to keep them honest.
Ohio State's defense, first of all, very, very talented. No questioning there. But it's also very disciplined. And they don't make a lot of mistakes. So you kind of have to do stuff to try to get them out, like whether it's RPOs or vertical routes, just to see if you can get somebody into making a mistake and blowing a coverage and getting a guy open and hitting a shot. So I think you're going to see Miami doing that. Another thing I think that you should look for in this game is I don't know the officiating crew who is working it, but I've watched a lot of Ohio State this year. Their defensive backs are handsy. And if you get a crew that is not so forgiving about like contact between defensive backs and receivers, you could draw a lot of flags on this team, and that could be something that Miami looks for to take advantage of. But I think, kind of like we discussed with Ohio State, Miami's going to have to try to run the ball here to slow down that pass rush because their offensive line did a phenomenal job against Texas A&M in College Station. Like Cassius Howell did not have a very good day. Maui Goa was pretty much in his ass. But the difference here is Ohio State has a lot more depth along its defensive line than I think Texas A&M does, and a lot more talented depth. Like Ohio State had 7 different guys on their defensive line take at least 200 snaps this year. They will be fresh in the fourth quarter. Will Miami be able to hold up? Will their offensive line start wearing down? Because that's what Ohio State's defense does to you. It just wears you down. And in the fourth quarter, the dam is typically broken by then if it hadn't before. So that's going to be very interesting for me. So I think you have to take shots. You have to do stuff to try to get them out of their spots. And you also just have to figure out a way to keep them in front of you. Don't let them get in the backfield because we know what Carson Beck does when he gets pressured. He just panics.
That's the kind of thing that really hurts your ability to, load up your all conference and all America teams, right? Because Caden McDonald was an All-American for us, but you talk about just the depth that they have along the defensive line. Just the counting stats aren't necessarily going to be there, but when we're talking about winning a championship, man, they're going to be better. The deeper this season goes, they're going to be better. They're going to be fresher. And they're doing it after they lost almost the entire defensive line to the NFL from last year's national title team. The poverty situation that Ohio State has when it comes to talent along the defense. Just
how do they fit all that under a $20.5 million cap?
Yeah,
that's right. Because the cap's real, right, Bud?
That's right.
But any last sort of matchup points that you've got your eyes on here for Miami, Ohio State?
I just think like the number of special pieces that they have at safety and at backer for Ohio State is really going to matter so much in this game when it comes down to chasing around Tony. I mean, Tony is not a guy, for the most part, who they throw the ball like super downfield to. And so like their ability to match him, to close distance and close space and get him on the ground is, if Miami's going to win this game, he probably needs 10 targets. Like just getting the ball in his hands in a variety of ways. Again, you see most receptions here in the season by freshman ACC history, Malachi Tony with 89. I just think that's where this Ohio State defense is very different to me than most of the other defenses in the country. And so I think that's a major matchup edge for Ohio State. So, how does Miami scheme around? I think Ohio State's corners are good, by the way. They may not all be first round type guys, but maybe it's not Tony. Maybe they have to have guys with one-on-ones on the outside, like Danny said.
Will be very interesting to watch. Reminder, that game will be on Wednesday night, New Year's Eve. Kickoff around 7:30 p.m. Eastern time from Dallas. And coming up on the other side, we turn our attention to breaking down the New Year's Day games, starting with Oregon and Texas Tech in the Orange Bowl and more.
Next.
This isn't just combat. It's cinema.
Ready or not, here I come. Let's go! Are you not entertained?
The new home of UFC, Paramount Plus.
Back here on the Cover 3 podcast, continuing our big game breakdowns with a look at the Oregon Ducks and the Texas Tech Red Raiders in the Orange Bowl. Danny Kanell, this is your national championship pick, the Oregon Ducks. Did you see enough? Are we more emboldened? Are we concerned? You've got a data point on the Ducks. We, of course, don't have anything from Texas Tech since they won the Big 12 title game against BYU. Just a check-in on your stock buy from Day Trade and Danny for the Ducks as your title winner.
I still like it. I wouldn't sell. I will say I was hoping to see potentially Evan Stewart on the field. We didn't see that. Corian Moore, what do you have? 1 reception. So he was still a little bit slowed, but I'm still banking on those guys coming back. I think this game actually, and with those weapons, whether they get all of them or not, I still think Noah Whittington has been a huge part of this offense.
Mm-hmm.
Are they able to run the ball against Texas Tech? I think they'll try, but I do not think they are worried about having to move the ball through the air against the biggest question mark for Texas Tech is their secondary. A lot of that money was spent on the front 7. Those guys, David Bailey, Romello Height, all the guys on the defensive line are beasts, but the one place that they did not really shore up was the secondary, and that's where I feel the most confident about this matchup is Dante Moore's ability to make good decisions, to get the ball to the right guy on the exterior, and to make some big plays that way. So I think, a lot of it comes down to, physicality. How do they handle the pass rush? But Dante Moore's pretty good getting outside the pocket. I think they'll have a pretty good, solid game plan for him. So that's kind of the matchup I'm watching is Dante Moore and those weapons hopefully getting healthier against Texas Tech secondary, which is not the strength of their defense.
I mean, to me, it's like, what do we start every Texas Tech game with analysis of? Can you block them? Can you block Texas Tech? Oregon is, I think, the best or second best offensive line that Tech has played so far this year, with the game at Utah probably being number 1. Now, we didn't know Dampier was hurt in that game because Whittingham kind of did some weird stuff there. But even so, right, yeah.
The college football coach?
Mm-hmm. Even so, we
former
have
Urban Meyer assistant.
They handled it pretty well. Like they were able to get a lot of pressure on Utah, both in the pass game, and they also held up in the run game, quite a bit. Tech has some injury stuff going on the defensive line, so that obviously helps out the Ducks a little bit. But Oregon has been really good on the offensive line this year. I think they're really healthy now on the offensive line. Speaking of health, Corian Moore, Gary Bryant back should be full go. Last check in the viewing portion, they did not see Evan Stewart out there in the portion of the Oregon practice that is available to the media. I don't know what they'll say on the injury report there, but if he's somehow full go, that really changes things quite a bit. But they've had other players really emerge for the Ducks this year. So, if Oregon can block them, I do think that despite the fact that Tech is really good at linebacker and their secondary is much improved, I still think that secondary is gettable by a hypothetical team that can block them. We just haven't seen anybody block them so far this year. But they also haven't faced many good passing quarterbacks. Was it Sam Levitt was probably the best one?
Mm-hmm.
I think.
And he threw for 300, didn't he?
Right.
Yeah.
Who's the second best? Is it Bachmeier?
No way. Hold on.
Probably. No, it might be.
No.
It wasn't Dampier.
You want to go through the list? Who's the second best?
Yeah.
Let's play the game.
Go through the list.
We only got so many big game breakdowns left. Let's play the game. What's the best passing quarterback?
Is it Avery Johnson?
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
Jalen Daniels?
I did,
Oklahoma State.
not
kid.
this year. I think Bear Bachmeier was the best quarterback they faced outside of Sam Levitt.
Connor Wegman?
Yeah, Connor Wegman actually is probably one of the
He's okay.
better ones.
They had no chance of blocking him in that game. I think Houston had some
None.
guys out up front, and they just got all over him.
Well, Connor Wegman.
They didn't play any Dante Moores.
They didn't play Josh Hoover. They didn't play Rocco Becht, right?
Connor Wegman threw for 345.
Didn't play Sawyer Robertson.
Let the man who just beat LSU to give the Cougs 10 wins, let him be celebrated for a second.
I thought Avery was scrambling around like crazy in that game, but did move it pretty okay. In a loss, of course. Dante's probably the best quarterback they've faced.
Mm-hmm.
And certainly the best QBO line combo they've faced. So that's what this game comes down to. I think Texas Tech will move it some. I don't know if they'll score between the 20 or inside the red zone. I think they'll probably move it some on Oregon's defense. But if Texas Tech's front just is what it was all year against a step up in competition now, then Tech's got a real shot to win this. If Oregon can slow them down, I think Oregon feels pretty good.
On yesterday's Locks Pod, when we recorded yesterday,
Uh-huh.
I took the Texas Tech team total under, and one of the reasons I'm not optimistic about their offense in this game is that, like, Tech has to hit explosives. Like, their offense is they're not going down to down schedules, putting together long drives. They're looking to hit big shots and finish drives quickly. Oregon's defense is the 4th nationally in explosive play rate allowed. They don't blitz a lot. They do a good job of getting pressure with just their base packages. They drop in the zone. They keep everything in front of you and force you to put together long drives. And then they, when they get in the red zone, they do have problems, but Texas Tech's offense has problems in the red zone. So that is a concern to me for Texas Tech offensively. On the other side, though, I think we talk about Texas Tech secondary, and I think you guys are right. There hasn't been a whole lot that has happened there to test them. Certainly not with what they're going to be dealing with in this matchup. But I do think what Texas Tech does is it is very aggressive on defense. Like, they're getting upfield as quickly as they can, that defensive line. They're not, you don't really see a whole lot of edge setting. They're coming after your ass. So I'm expecting that what we're going to see early in this game is Oregon's going to do a whole lot of its horizontal passing stuff. We're going to see a lot of screens to the sidelines, forcing Texas Tech to keep kind of creeping up to take care of that, because they're probably going to hit a few chunks off of that because their receivers are good in space. And then once Texas Tech starts doing that, shots down the field looking for the big plays, which they're good at, because I do have concerns of whether or not Oregon will be able to run the ball as effectively in this game as they have been the last month or so. And I do think Texas Tech's run defense is very good, but as I mentioned on yesterday's Locks Pod, Texas Tech hasn't faced a rushing offense that is good and also has a good quarterback. So it's a much different task when you can't just load the box with 8 or 9 guys to slow them down. So it'll be interesting to see. I do think Oregon ends up winning this game. I just don't know if it's going to be a blowout win or if it's going to be like an ugly-ish kind of win.
Is there a been here before advantage that we should take into consideration, or is that just like total narrative sauce?
How do you quantify it?
Because Dan Lanning and his staff have had to prepare for college football playoff games, for big time games for a couple years now. And Texas Tech simply just not only has not been here in terms of playing in the college football playoff, but just has not played games on this stage with these kinds of stakes very often. I mean, there is a newness that is undeniable. That what is debatable is the impact that it would actually have.
I do think there's something to it. I do think that there is I don't think it's an incredible advantage, but I do think there's a slight advantage to having been here before. So maybe even if, despite the coaching, even if you're just a player,
I'm
you're not as
imagining the player of like just how like this. I'm not trying to be mean, but this ain't the Alamo Bowl. Like this ain't the Holiday Bowl.
Yeah,
like the amount of locked in that you need to be to get yourself prepared for kickoff against this opponent on this stage at this time. It's
fair to say this is the biggest game a lot of the guys in those Texas Tech uniforms have ever played. And you don't know how you're going to handle that. There could be some tension and some, anxiety early on in the game before you finally settle in. So yeah, I definitely think that's part of the equation. I don't know how big of a factor it is though.
What do we think the fan turnout's going to be, DK?
I think it'll be more Texas Tech,
right?
Some Oregon, some empty seats. I don't know. I don't know. It's a hard place to travel for Oregon.
Yeah.
But it's just, the weather's gorgeous. It's kind of the South Florida issue that they always run in. It's not the best sports town that just people are going to die hard, is going to go want to watch a college football playoff game.
There's a bit of a brand issue there, right? Like Oregon is a good TV draw. If you look at some of the TV stuff, they're not quite as good as maybe like they don't draw quite as well as they play. And Tech's not really a name brand, among like the top 20 or so name brands in the sport as far as like draw and excitement. So how many casuals are you going to get, like sidewalk guys, you're going to get to buy tickets? Yeah, let's go to the Orange Bowl. Maybe
I
some.
mean, this is one of those times where the college football playoff selection committee needs to look at itself in the mirror and say, how much better could this game have been if it had been Texas Notre Dame instead of these two scrubs?
Well, no,
Or
hold
in
on.
Lubbock.
Whoa. This is a big game
Oh,
breakdown. We
boy.
can't get this. I was
Yeah.
thinking less of a percentage to capacity as much of a percentage against each other. I was imagining that with this being arguably one of the biggest games in Texas Tech football history, that we could see Texas Tech roll deep. That Texas Tech,
yeah.
They'll roll deep. I mean, I think it'll be a significant edge for Texas Tech.
yeah, I
Think
think
about the alumni bases too. Like, where
Mhm.
do you think the biggest alumni bases for Tech are? I would guess
in Texas,
Houston, Dallas, Austin, Oklahoma City.
right? That was a nice little run.
Maybe San Antonio. Like I'm just like major cities that are close, right?
Mhm. I will say that
What are they for Oregon? Portland, San Fran, LA, Salt Lake, Vegas.
Far away.
I'm just trying to like major cities on the West Coast. Right. Yeah.
far away. But
With-
to your
with-
point, because you mentioned it should be in Lubbock, and credit to Dan Lanning for saying that too. Dan
Oh, Dan
during
Lanning
his press
said that.
conference last week said this game should be played in Lubbock.
Yeah, so I do think
And so
Texas Tech will have more fans, and that could prove me wrong, Oregon fans. I've seen y'all travel. First year of the Big Ten play, Oregon fans in opposing Big Ten stadiums was impressive. Got to see it in person for myself in Ann Arbor, which obviously is a little bit of a bucket list trip for some, but they seemed to be really excited about going to see all these new places along the way.
it's also like you have to fly on New Year's Eve and early on New Year's Eve to get there because you're losing all that time. If you're in Portland, when are you flying in for this game?
On the 30th?
30th
Yeah.
They're all weak.
or like the morning of the 31st? That's an expensive flight.
They're already there.
I've been sleeping in that Hard Rock parking lot for 4 days already.
All right. Let's turn our attention to the afternoon kick, but in the Rose Bowl, it is Indiana and Alabama. We have, of course, a lot of injuries that we are monitoring, especially on the Alabama side that could play an impact in this. On the Indiana side, just the remarkable, awful injury luck of having one of your best defensive linemen jumping up to give a high five and then having his leg buckle. It's tough scene there for the Hoosiers defense, but it's still a group that has done nothing but just check every box and pass every test in terms of not just being a team that can take advantage of a weak schedule to go win a bunch of games, but a team that can beat some of the best teams in the sport. You beat Oregon in their house. You beat Ohio State in the Big Ten championship. There is nothing fluky about where Indiana is here now. Now they go up against a program and a brand and a monster that is Alabama that is not led by Nick Saban, but man, it is still loaded with some of the most talent that you are going to find in all of college football. Bud, what is the key for Alabama to play to its talent ceiling? Because if there is a criticism of the last two seasons, I think it is that the talent rating and the talent analysis going into the year has not always lined up with the win-loss record.
I think a lot of it is defensively. Indiana has killed teams playing a lot of zone this year. Bama's a team that wants to play more zone. I think Bama has the physical potential, like athlete-wise, and I think their secondary is very good to play more man. I think they will almost have to show more man in this game. So how much man do they think they have to play? Like how much zone can they get away with playing? And like how effectively can they play a lot of man coverage against Indiana? Indiana is a heavy RPO team. I don't mean like QB run stuff. I mean like, hey, we're pick a guy, we're reading this guy, like we're RPOing off a certain dude. Otherwise, like balls out. Typically, like the teams that play man are a little better against that, right? And Mendoza's also not really much of a run threat. So I think that would also kind of lend yourself like we want to play more man here. Can they get away with doing it? Like they don't play a ton of man; they play more zone. So you're asking them to maybe not play outside their ability, but to play outside of their comfort zone if you want to maximize their chance. And I don't know how well that matches up in a national quarterfinal, right? So styles make fights. I don't love that matchup for the Bama defense personally.
DK, what stands out? Where is this one going to hinge?
I think if Ty Simpson can get hot, like I'm not convinced that Alabama is going to be able to run the ball. I mean, when we talked about it on our picks on the Locks pod, do they just try to throw it? I mean, you've got to keep them honest. So, I I mean, they had 28 rushes or 25 rushes for 28 yards against Oklahoma. And a lot of those were sacks for Ty Simpson getting pressured. But that's the strength of your team are your weapons on the outside, and Ty Simpson, when he's hot, he can be really good. So that's where I think the kind of matchups would tend to favor Alabama if they can make this a game. I do think Indiana will be able to score against Alabama's defense. Not a shootout by any means, but I do think they'll be able to score. They're one of the more balanced teams of any in this college football playoff. So for me, if Alabama's got to put points on the board, I think their best chance is through the air.
Yeah, I mean that's one of those things that overall just kind of makes me skeptical of Alabama's ability to make the deep run. It's not that they're not talented, it's that offensively it's the Ty Simpson show, and they pretty much they need him to do everything, it feels like, most of the time. And when he's playing well, it works. When he's not, they really don't have a counter. So I look at the matchup here. Alabama's going to have to hit explosives in the passing game because they're probably not going to be able to run the ball very effectively because nobody's been able to run the ball effectively against Indiana, though. Maybe this is where the absence of Daly has an impact because he's not their best pass rusher, but he is a very disruptive player, particularly in the run game. So maybe Alabama finds some success there. But I do think that overall, the one area of Indiana's defense that has been vulnerable, they do allow big plays in the passing game. They will give up explosives. So if Alabama is able to find those shots and hit enough of them, I think that they can make this game very uncomfortable for the Hoosiers. It's just at the same time, and as you guys touched on, Alabama has not faced a lot of passing offenses that push the ball vertically on average, as far as air yards are concerned. The two that they faced that had a higher air yardage per attempt than Indiana were Florida State and Tennessee. Well, we know what Florida State did to them, but that's a very different offense than what Indiana runs, and Tennessee runs a very different offense than Indiana does. This is more like, Bud, you mentioned they run a lot of RPOs, but they're also very kind of pro style overall in what they're doing. And they also have a much better quarterback than either Florida State or Tennessee had in Fernando Mendoza as far as hitting those throws. So we saw last week against Mateer, Alabama there were a lot of dudes running open in that secondary.
Mm-hmm.
Indiana has very good receivers too. I think you're going to see a lot of dudes running open in the Alabama secondary, and I think Indiana's going to be able to move the ball effectively. I think Indiana will be able to run the ball better in this game than Alabama will, which I think tilts it in their favor. So I do think that if you're Alabama, you have to figure out a way to get Indiana to turn the ball over and give you extra possessions. It's really your number one route to victory here, because I do think Alabama can win. I do think there is something to the ability of, if you look at them defensively, Indiana hasn't faced a whole hell of a lot of defensive lines that have this kind of body and talent. And pressure-wise, they're not great. They're not bad, but they're kind of more middle of the road as far as pressure rate allowed. Like Fernando Mendoza has been pressured a lot. Of course, he's been superhuman-like when he has been pressured because he's not afraid to stand there and take the hits. So if you're the Tide, you have to get that pass rush going. You have to figure out ways to overwhelm that offensive line, and you have to figure out ways to bait Mendoza into traps or at least hurry him. Because we did see on the road against Oregon earlier this year, he overcame it, but he did throw that pick six when Oregon was getting after him. You have to figure out ways to do that yourself. Because if Alabama doesn't win the turnover battle, there's no way they win this game, in my opinion.
You do have the athleticism on that defense, though, to be able to run it the other way or have a big return or flip the field. Those things are there. Lottie Brooks was tremendous in the first round matchup, which leads to my next question. Will Ryan Williams be a factor in this game? Kalen DeBoer has been asked about Williams and his sort of lack of involvement in the offense. He defended, our concepts are not built to necessarily get the ball to one player. Certainly sometimes we do with screens and things like that, but the ball, we need to do that because he's a playmaker. But in our concepts, the ball found other guys and those guys made plays. We'll see. There have been obviously questions about what Ryan Williams' future is going to be beyond this, just as much as anybody else who's a gifted player with the transfer portal set to open. What do we think about Williams in this matchup? If you were to take a guess, do you think we see him force fed? Do you think we see a decent impact, or do we see a nothing, Danny? think he's.
I mean, I don't think they're going to force feed him the ball. They don't have to. They've got other weapons who have stepped up. Jeremy Bernard's been awesome. You mentioned Brooks stepping up. But I think it makes you nervous, I think, for a defense. I don't think you're game planning to stop Ryan Williams by any means. I think there's the threat that he could hurt you. But, I mean, we just saw him with his 10th drop against Oklahoma. Mentally, I don't know where his headspace is. That is not somebody I would want to be forcing the ball to.
Last 4 games, he has 4 catches for 63 yards. If you look at him on the season, against ranked teams, 6 games, 17 catches for 224 yards and 1 touchdown. No. He's not going to have an impact in this game.
We're playing against a ranked team. He's not just going to be able to blow past him and get wide TF open.
He's like the 3rd or 4th best receiver on this team. We're only fascinated with him because he had 1 great game against Georgia.
He made some plays.
I think
he makes plays. He's not a good receiver, but he'll make a play.
What do you think, Bud?
I think there's some chance he's still special as far as speed wise and agility. There's some confidence issues with the catching. So maybe they do try to find other ways to get the ball in his hands, potentially.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I could see that. Yeah. But I don't know that they have to Tom and Danny's point.
Again, that will be from the Rose Bowl, kicking off around 4 p.m. Eastern time in Pasadena. The 1 seed, Indiana, against the 9 seed, Alabama. Well, coming up on the other side, we turn our attention to the Sugar Bowl quarterfinal between Georgia and Ole Miss. Have we seen this game before? We have. We'll get into it and more next.
When you need your sports news all the time,
We've got breaking news to bring to you.
CBS Sports HQ gives you a snapshot of all the sports that matter to you. When you need your sports in a snap, find it on CBS Sports HQ, streaming free anywhere you are.
Back here on the Cover 3 podcast. Again, we detailed, especially leading into Ole Miss Tulane, sort of all of the changes. So we don't need to belabor the point there. But what did you see from Ole Miss that either confirmed or changed your mind in terms of the way that you should break this team down after the changes of Lane Kiffin leaving? You've got Charlie Weiss Jr. came back to coach, a few other assistants, a few other staffers as well, whatever influence Pete Golding was going to have. Did you see anything from the win against Tulane which altered your perspective on trying to break this thing down?
It's a fair question, Chip, but I did not. I just think that matchup was so much an overwhelming height, weight, speed type thing to where if they do have changes, they didn't really seem to show them. One of the top questions in my mind is Golding's a defensive guy, and certainly I think he wants to continue to run somewhat of a wide open offense like Ole Miss has run. But we don't know how he's going to manage a game when it gets tight. Kiffin is really good as far as in-game management, maximizing possessions, understanding how to use timeouts, things like that. He's really good at that. We don't know how good at that Golding is because we haven't seen it. We have not seen him be the head coach in a tight game. So I don't think they're going to run a whole lot of different stuff. It's just, do they go a little more defensive head coach style where they're a little more conservative? Maybe they tempo down some in a tight game. Maybe there's a bit of a pucker factor there. We don't know, right? As far as, maybe some punting where Lane would try to go and we know that probably hurts your chance of winning overall, but it also it will keep the game closer potentially. So that's something that I will look for in this one if the game is actually close.
And I think he was aggressive early against Tulane. There was a 4th down or some territory, and but that's a different scenario. If it's home time, this is playoffs. You're not the heavy favorite. Every single decision will be amplified. So I do think that's something to keep an eye on. I'm kind of curious to see, Ole Miss came out. They were so strong early in that game through 3 quarters. I would expect Kirby Smart to make some adjustments and take some of that away.
Yeah.
Keywan Lacey was not able to run the football in the first matchup. I think they're going to try to do that again, but I don't know if they're going to have much success doing it. I almost feel like Kirby and this Georgia defense are way different and way better than they were the first time around. I think it's going to be a little bit of a struggle for Ole Miss to put up some points.
Fellas.
Yeah.
What if I told you that the Ole Miss defense turned a corner in the Tulane game. Would you believe me?
No.
Okay, because on the season, Ole Miss has scored 31 points off of turnovers on the entire season. 21 of them came against Tulane. What if the Ole Miss Rebels are suddenly a team that turns you over and turns it into points? They have to be if they're going to win this game, because I mentioned it on the Lock Spot. Georgia had 8 full possessions in the first meeting. Georgia scored on all 8 of those possessions. And if not for like a offensive pass interference, it probably would have been a touchdown instead of a field goal on one of those possessions. So I just don't have a whole lot of faith that defensively. I think statistically, you look at a lot of the categories that I care about, and of the 8 remaining teams in the field, Ole Miss is the worst in all of them. It's just hasn't been a very good defense all year. I don't know what has changed in the last few weeks or since last week that would make me think that they are capable of stopping Georgia when they could not stop Georgia the first time around. I mean, Tulane was able to move the ball on them last week, but Tulane turned it over or just didn't finish drives. So that's a problem that Ole Miss needs to figure out here. It will be interesting to see. At the same time, Georgia's offense has been very effective. I still don't feel like it's great when I watch it. Like, they score points, they move the ball, but you watch them and you're just kind of like, you wonder if they're just more talented and that's kind of what they're relying on, or if there's actually something kind of special about it. I don't know if that's really going to impact them in this game, because I do think they are the better team and I do think they will score a hell of a lot of points. It's more of a long-term issue I have with Georgia going forward than in this one.
So there's a number that is important to me. The number is 76. Okay. 76. 76 is the number of inches that is 6'4". 6'4" is how tall Colby Young is. And Colby Young was knocked out of the Ole Miss game. And even though he only played 7 games on the season, he is still the team's second leading receiver on the season behind Zachariah Branch. We have seen from Georgia's bowl game preparation that the media was allowed to look at. Colby Young seems to be back, and that feels fairly significant in, I don't know, third down, red zone, deep shots, lots of different angles when it comes to the passing game. Like, you talk about like what was in one but not in the other. He had just 1 catch, I believe, in the game against Ole Miss before getting hurt and getting knocked out. The way that he can provide a boost for a passing attack that already kind of cooked Ole Miss's defense in the first game, that's one that I'm looking at, Tom, which could be important not just for this one, but like you said, spinning it moving forward. Can Colby Young's return be an offensive spark that is able to really start to continue to provide some balance, open up the run game, things of that nature?
Fun stat. If you look at it from reception, Zach Branch has 73 on the year, right?
Right.
Georgia's next 3 receivers, Dylan Bell, Colby Young, and Oscar Delp, have combined for 69. Branch has more receptions than the next 3 guys alone.
So I'm looking at that as a
cover that guy. Is what I'm saying. You're
Kewan Lacey's health, another thing I'm kind of keeping my eyes on in a big way. It's just he's
been awesome.
Here's what I stopped myself on. I was about to say he was their best offensive player this season. Is that fair? Trinidad's been good.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I would agree.
I mean, he's definitely the one I'm highest on.
Yeah, as we see here on the screen, if you're watching along at youtube.com/cover3, Kewan Lacey with 1,366 yards. That is the second best single season total in Ole Miss history, only behind Quinshon Judkins back in 2022. Danny, what about the big picture stuff for the Dogs? I'm not going to give them the win. I'm not going to advance them just yet. I mean, they are sitting here as a 6.5 or right around a touchdown favorite. You can lose that game 100%. But Tom's question at least brought it up for me. Wow, is this a team that you think can win a national championship?
Yeah, I had them in a small group of teams that could, playing at their best. I think this is sort of if they do handle their business, which I think they will. And I don't know if I haven't really heard anybody say that Georgia can't. I think if they struggle with Ole Miss, you might see some doubters creep in, because I think the majority think they should handle their business. But I think the defense has come along. Gunnar Stockton quietly has been a gamer that has stepped up in the biggest spots. They've been running the football better. They're getting healthy. Absolutely. They've got the pedigree. We've seen Kirby Smart irritated. I'm sure he's tired. He hasn't been in the national championship game in a few years, so he's probably a little agitated by that.
Itch.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, I think all of it. Yeah, definitely.
But
I'm going to give Kirby a freebie here. I do not believe a word I'm about to say. 3. No, Georgia is not capable of winning a national title. Georgia is a terrible football team. Frankly, they're not talented. Gunnar Stockton is all moxie and no ability, no talent, no brains. He's out there on vibes, and vibes do not win national titles. Defensively, the pass rush is dog doo-doo. It's not good enough to compete at this level. Frankly, if Georgia was in the Big Ten, it probably wouldn't even have made a bowl game, let alone the college football playoff.
And scene.
There you go.
There you go, Kirby. Just
Got
what
it.
you needed for the video to play on New Year's Eve as you're getting the team together to show them that last little bit of motivation. It's Tom. Is that actually the Brad Underwood, Illinois?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
yeah. It's Tom in a Brad Underwood, Illinois cap.
So good.
So good. Excuse me. Bud, last thoughts here. Places where you think it's like very important to get the matchup right for both of these teams.
Like, does Bobo play the center?
Center, yeah.
Like last 6 quarters for Georgia offensively, I've not been like in love with. Not they're terrible, but they just haven't looked quite the same. I mean, he obviously like is really an important part of that offense. Like Chip said, Colby Young coming back is huge. But I do think that there is enough on defense for Georgia to get enough stops to where the offense will find out a way to score and come out ahead.
I think we are not going to see. I don't know. Okay, I don't have that confirmed. That's not reported. But how about this? If we were sitting around taking bar bets, we say, is Drew Bobo going to play in this game? I would guess. I would bet a drink that the answer might be that it's going to be sticking to the backups and the retooled offensive line, which did a good enough job early against Alabama to help establish that lead. But to your point, Bud, in terms of the last 6 quarters, I mean, I don't know. I don't know if we can say that they are anywhere close to where they were at their very peak at the end of the year in terms of the offensive line, but something certainly to monitor moving forward. All right. Any other thoughts on the Sugar Bowl? All right.
Excited to watch it.
I don't know. I'm excited to watch it too. And I'm excited when the Sugar Bowl ends for everybody, every single one of you to come and join us as we recap all of the college football playoff quarterfinal action on New Year's Day, because that's right. It will be at the conclusion of the Cotton Bowl on New Year's Eve between Ohio State and Miami. We will be live on youtube.com/cover3. Then at the conclusion of the Sugar Bowl between Georgia and Ole Miss, we will be live at youtube.com/cover3, giving you those instant reactions to all of the day's action. So come and hang out, watch live, join the conversation, and you can follow him on Twitter at Tom Fornelli. You can follow him at Bud Elliott 3. You can follow him at Danny Kanell. Follow me at Chip _Patterson. Gentlemen, thank you very much.
Thank you.
See y'all.